And now I want to read you a quote that we wish we could hear from everybody who does research into cancer treatments. Are you ready for this? Quote, "It worked much better than we thought it would." Now, it is an exciting new approach to attacking the most common form of leukemia. Doctors at the University of Pennsylvania took a certain type of white blood cell from 3 leukemia patients who'd exhausted the conventional therapies. They inserted some genes that made the cells recognize, target, and kill the cancer cells and to multiply inside the body. The good cells thus became serial killers of sorts of the bad cells. 1 year later, 2 of the patients have no detectable cancer in their bodies. The third has 70% fewer cancer cells than before. Joining me here to talk about this in Atlanta, to talk about all of this and what this means exactly, is Dr. Otis Brawley. He's the Chief Medical Officer of the American Cancer Society. And from Philadelphia, we're also pleased to welcome to the show the lead researcher himself, Dr. Carl June. Dr. June, I'd like to start with you. Tweaking patients' own cells to attack disease isn't new, so I'm curious what you did that past researchers didn't do.
Well, thank you. There were several new or innovative aspects to the trial that we've just reported. First of all, our trial was the first to use an HIV-based virus to introduce the gene into the patient's good cells, as the T cells, as you call them. That then turned the cells into what we call chimeric T cells, and that's after the Greek work of chimera, which is for an animal that's composed of 2 different species. And in this case, we made the T cells chimeric, so they resembled both a B cell, which makes antibodies, and then T cells, which are able to kill other cells, in this case, tumor cells. So they were very efficiently manufactured in the chimeric cells that could then express antibodies, which are known an effective form of therapy for cancer. And then another aspect of the trial that we think made a difference was that the cells actually replicated when we infused them into the patients. And we found that in all patients, the cells were still present more than 6 months after they were infused. And furthermore, in 2 of the patients, the cells expanded between 1,000 and 10,000-fold within a month after infusion.
Well, this
final thing that hasn't... Yes. Well, there's one other aspect that made the cells, we think, work, which was that they were actually multitasking cells. So that these chimeric cells, when they encountered tumor, they killed the tumor. They were told to do that by the chimeric protein. But then the other thing they did is they then divided so that they made more of themselves. And we found that there was actually, that each cell was able to kill more than 1,000 tumor cells this way.
That's amazing. I want to bring in Dr. Brawley here because I'm curious what you think of this. I mean, it sounds like we might be onto something here.
I think this is incredibly good work. I don't want patients to get the wrong impression, however. There's still a lot of good work to be done. Dr. June has been working on things like this since his old days at the Bethesda Naval Hospital, and we were both together at that time more than 20 years ago. This is still going to need at least probably 5 to 10 years of good work before we can get it out to large numbers of people, if it works then. We've helped 3 patients so far, and hopefully we're going to be able to help more, but it's going to take some time.
Dr. June, what type of leukemia did you actually study here?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I want to emphasize what Dr. Brawley said, which is entirely true. It takes an average 5 to 10 years to get FDA approval and to make something like this generally available, and that's a large task ahead. And the patients, and specifically we just treated, had chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which is one of the most common kinds of leukemia in adults.
And why was the study so small? I know we're talking about 3 patients here.
Yeah. Well, it was a pilot study, the first time that this had been tested, and we were only able to get enough funding to do that, to treat initially to see if it would be safe or not. And then, so now we plan to continue this study and, to go on to the steps that Dr. Brawley was mentioning so that it could be more widely available.
Hey, Dr. Brawley, is there a shortage overall of cancer research funding in the U.S.?
Absolutely. You know, about 10% of all the ideas submitted to the National Cancer Institute actually get funded. Those ideas that have been judged to be worthy of funding. We're at a point where we have lots of ideas, lots of very good science that could be done, but only about 10% of it is actually funded. So there's probably some good studies like this that got no money whatsoever and never gotten to patients. It's one of the reasons why we're so adamant that we need to support scientific research.
Sure, and even though it may take a while, maybe 5 or 10 years, as Dr. June, you say, we're certainly excited about it. So thank you so much, Dr. Brawley, Dr. June, for coming on and discussing this with us.
Thank you.
In their spring training camp, and he's definitely got the inside track. Word is that they're having some problems with injuries.
Really? And are they looking into free agent signings last second, anything like that? Or?
Possibly, and they've got a strong farm club, too. They've got some AAA ball players they might be bringing up, but again, Peter would certainly be able to tell us a little more about that in the next half hour.
Who do you like?
Well, I'm telling you, so far, I like what I'm seeing in New York. They've got a strong ball club as usual. That's in the American. And in the National, I'm still liking Chicago with a little bit of a twist here for Los Angeles.
Okay, so we're looking at New York, Chicago World Series possible, Los Angeles. You've got it here. Hey, hold him to it at the end of the season. That's going to do it for us from the Sports Desk right now. Back to you guys in the studio. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for nothing, Eddie.
Thank you, guys. That's not all we're following. Here's Karen at the Health Desk.
The world of medicine has seen its share of miracle cures, from the polio vaccine to heart transplants, but all past achievements may pale in comparison to the work of Dr. Alice Crippen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Not at all.
So, Dr. Crippen, give it to me in a nutshell.
Well, the premise is quite simple. Take something designed by nature and reprogram it to make it work for the body rather than against it.
You're talking about a virus?
Indeed, yes, in this case, the measles virus, which has been engineered at a genetic level to be helpful rather than harmful. And I find the best way to describe it is if you can imagine your body as a highway and you picture the virus as a very fast car being driven by a very bad man, imagine the damage that car could cause. But then if you replace that man with a cop, the picture changes, and that's essentially what we've done.
How many people have you treated so far?
Well, we've had 10,009 clinical trials in humans so far.
And how many are cancer-free?
10,009.
So you have actually cured cancer?
Yes, yes. Yes, we have.